Hey guys, so over the weekend I was pretty busy, and as you can tell, my voice is kind of disappearing right now. And even worse, my computer decided to completely crap out on me. It'll work fine for like 10 to 20 minutes if I do like a hard reset. And then after a while, the keyboard will start going insane, and the computer will act as if I'm like spamming the down arrow. It may be like Control or FN or something. Not 100% sure, but I uninstalled my keyboard drivers. I did a system restore, and neither of those helped. So I did a full Windows reinstall, and that didn't help. So I had to order a new keyboard to go into my laptop, which that's absolutely great. But what happened on the weekend? Well, I wasn't able to get home in time to watch the Super Bowl, but neither team or teams that I really care all that much about. I think it was the Patriots, which the Patriots are like there every single year, so who cares? At this point, I think like the games are like kind of like rigged or something. I don't know. It again doesn't really matter. Anywho, apparently the halftime show was absolutely awful. For one, the entire show was in Spanish. So, the grand majority of Americans couldn't understand it, since the official language of the United States is now English and has been under Trump for a while. Two, the game, like to go there, even in the lower bowl seats, is thousands upon thousands of dollars. In fact, it might be upward to like $2,000 to $4,000 to get a seat at the Super Bowl. But during the halftime show, they put a bunch of props around the stadium on the field. And it was like tall grass or something looking like that. And it blocked a lot of the lower bowl seats from even seeing what was going on in the show. So imagine paying $3,000-$4,000 for a seat and being completely unable to watch the halftime show, which is one of the supposedly most popular events in the entire country every year. Because people will make political statements, or they'll do something crazy, something inappropriate, do something just really edgy, something weird. And, well, they tried to do that, but the people who actually do really do care about it were unable to watch the show. So, of course, a lot of people booed the hell out of it. And having the whole thing in Spanish is an obvious ploy for, like, all the Hispanic people and Spanish-speaking people in the entire country, particularly the illegal immigrants. Again, completely ignoring and I think like 46% of Hispanic Latino people in the country voted for Trump. The ones that actually did vote, 46% of them voted for Trump. And like, it was like 52% of Hispanic or Latino men voted for Trump. So they tried, it seems, and I can't really prove it, it seemed like they tried to appeal and bring to light more of like kicking out illegal immigrants. So again, everybody expected this, everybody saw this coming. The people involved are all political and have gay political takes, it seems like. So they already alienated half the country, and probably even people on their own side who just wanted to get away from politics for a while and watch a football game instead of watching some crazy political thing going on during the halftime show. That was my understanding of the situation. And at the same time, there was a TPUSA, a Turning Point USA show going on, and they called it the TPUSA Half-time Show. They go on at the same time as the halftime show. And apparently millions upon millions upon millions of people tuned into that instead of watching the Super Bowl. And of course the left still says that Charlie Kirk was one of the worst human beings on the planet, despite the fact that he was one of the most moderate conservatives in the entire country. He's just like a baseline Christian man inside of America. Like, there was nothing about him. There was nothing racist about him. There was nothing homophobic about him. There was nothing, anything like that about him. It's just from his personal opinion as a religious man, a Christian, and he doesn't agree with like gay marriage and everything, but I don't think he even ever talked about like banning it. Or even if he did, he was the kind of person who would suggest like some kind of formal non-religious partnership to replace marriage for like the LGBT community, so they could still have the benefit of having a partner that they could put on their insurance or put in their will or co-sign stuff with, without it being officially considered marriage. Which, given that in the United States there is both annulment and divorce, which if you don't know the difference, Christians, or specifically Catholics, don't believe in divorce. So if like, say the husband or the wife cheats during the marriage, that means that they didn't fulfill their wedding vows. Therefore, the marriage can be annulled by the Catholic Church, which means that the marriage was never a real marriage to begin with. And legally speaking, there's no difference. So what a lot of Christians think is that there should be something that's basically the same as marriage without actually being called marriage for the LGBT community. And a lot of like LGBT is like, what's the point? And it's just like, well, marriage is a religious ceremony, and the Christians kind of wanted to keep that as a religious ceremony, and then we would have something that's basically the same thing, exactly the same thing almost, except it does not involve a religious ceremony. Now again, I'm ambient about this. I don't really care all that much, but from the point of view of the average American, Charlie Kirk was the most milquetoast, moderate, reasonable conservative you can possibly have. He didn't hate anybody. He wasn't afraid of anybody. He just had his religious beliefs, and he believed that marriage was a religious ceremony that should stay as a religious ceremony only between a man and a woman who are intending to fulfill their wedding vows. And that was like the end all be all of his ideology. That and like the basic stuff, like you need an ID to vote, which if you haven't been paying attention to CNN, which is a left-wing network, CNN did a poll where they found that like 85% of America wants it to be mandatory to show your ID when you go to vote. And that includes 70% of black people. Like, and it's like 95% of Republicans want it to be mandatory to have ID to vote. And then it was like 80% of Democrats want it to be mandatory for people to have an ID to vote. And the Senate Democrats are so against the SAVE Act, which requires you to have an ID to vote, from being passed in the Senate, that they're willing to filibuster and shut down the entire government, cutting off pay to all government employees and military personnel. And just because you shut off the pay to the military and government employees, ICE agents aren't going to stop working. They're just going to get a little bit more angry. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the Democrats just want to get like ICE agents feeling as uncomfortable as possible, so they make more mistakes, and so they can have more martyrs in which to beat Trump over the head with, despite the fact that only in Minnesota, specifically Minneapolis, are ICE agents having this much problems, because both the local city police and the state police have been banned from helping out ICE agents entirely. Which even in the most blue states in the country, even in the most blue cities in the country, police are still helping ICE agents have like a proper cordon around their area of investigation. Sorry, you guys keep falling down. My phone's about to die, so I have to have it plugged in, and that kind of makes this whole thing a little bit shaky. And I'm trying to focus on the road too. So, they are like doing everything possible to violate the majority of the country's beliefs and political standpoint that we need ID to vote. And again, the majority of Democrats, the majority of black people, who Democrats swear up and down that black people are too stupid or too poor to get an ID. Which, if you go talk to a bunch of white liberals, a lot of them do believe that. But then if you go into a black neighborhood and ask them if they have an ID, the majority of the black population is like, yeah, I got an ID. Everyone I know has an ID. There's not a single person in the neighborhood who doesn't have an ID. And it's just sad. It's just sad in general that the Democrats are so petty that they will ignore that 85% of the country want the SAVE Act to be passed, and they're willing to shut down pay to the military, hurting everyone in the government, not just ICE agents, but every agent. That includes the FBI, the CIA, the NHS, all military personnel. Some people would be happy that the IRS is also shut down. But like, everyone's being punished for just having a job in government. And I'm sure some libertarians out there are celebrating, or some anarchists are celebrating. But even the most strident of libertarians still believes that there should be some government. There should be some military. Like, libertarianism does not mean outright anarchism. It doesn't. Anyways, Democrats are hurting themselves again. The Super Bowl, wasn't sure exactly what the point was, but even if you assume there's no political message whatsoever, the majority of the people in the country couldn't understand what was being said during the halftime show. And a lot of the super fans who really, really, really care about football were not able to watch the show, despite being at the game and spending thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars to be there in person. Which is why this show was booed up and down by a good portion of the stadium. Probably even by a good portion of the people in the upper decks too, who could see what was going on. Because again, it was absolutely ridiculous. Anyways. So, more failures all around the board. It set more people to watch the TPUSA show, which God only knows how much advertising revenue to Turning Point USA. But it's probably the exact opposite of what the Super Bowl wanted, if it was supposed to be a political statement that was going on. But anyways, both the NFL and the Democrats screwing up again and driving more people away from watching football. What else is new? That's it for now, guys. Bye.